Welcome back to Poorly Educated Today in the News. Now, I don't know if you've checked the world lately, but it looks like somebody shook the global HA sketch and then tried to fix it with duct tape and optimism. We got wars, tariffs, heat waves, AI layoffs, elections that ain't really elections, and the stock market acting like a caffeinated squirrel that just found a bag of espresso beans. And the weird part is, none of these stories exist in a vacuum. They're all bouncing off each other like beer cans in the back of a pickup, going down a gravel road at 70 miles an hour. So today, we're going to walk through the chaos step by step and try to make sense of it the only way we know how. Poorly. Segment 1. Oil, war, and the world's angriest gas pump. The war between the United States, Israel, and Iran has now stretched past 2 weeks, and the whole region is starting to look like a fireworks show where nobody remembers who lit the first fuse. Iran's main oil export hub on Karg Island got hit with massive strikes, and the U.S. basically said, "We blew up the weapons but left the pipelines intact, so the global economy doesn't explode like a lawnmower full of fireworks," which is the geopolitical equivalent of smashing a guy's truck, but carefully leaving the cup holders untouched. Now the real choke point is the Strait of Hormuz, which carries a huge chunk of the world's oil supply. If that corridor gets fully blocked, energy markets start behaving like a teenager who just discovered energy drinks and conspiracy podcasts. Shipping companies are already rerouting tankers all the way around Africa, which turns a 3-week trip into a month-long scenic tour of the ocean. That's expensive, and expensive shipping means expensive everything, from groceries to lawn chairs. So the International Energy Agency stepped in and released over 400 million barrels of oil from emergency reserves. 400 million barrels. That's not a strategic reserve anymore. That's basically the world opening the emergency snack drawer and hoping the apocalypse calms down before the chips run out. And the grounded observation here is simple. When global supply chains stretch like this, prices eventually follow. Segment 2. Tariffs, Congress, and the executive branch with a big red button. Back home in Washington, the federal government decided this was also a great time to shake the trade system like a vending machine that ate your dollar. President Donald Trump invoked a rarely used section of the Trade Act of 1974 to slap a 10% tariff on imports worldwide for the next 150 days. The official explanation is fixing the trade deficit and boosting domestic manufacturing. Now, if you picture the global economy like a giant barbecue grill, tariffs are basically someone walking up and cranking the heat knob to max while the burgers are still cooking. Sure, you might get some extra sizzle at home, but the smoke alarms start going off everywhere else. Companies that rely on imported parts suddenly have higher costs, and those costs eventually wander right down to the checkout counter. Meanwhile, Congress tried to push a resolution questioning the president's authority to start the war with Iran without formal approval. That effort collapsed faster than a folding lawn chair at a tailgate party, with only one Republican senator crossing the aisle. That tells you something important about modern politics. Institutional checks still exist, but they're about as sturdy as a screen door on a submarine when partisan loyalty kicks in. And the underlying reality is that executive power keeps expanding. Trade decisions, military action, immigration enforcement, all moving faster than the legislative branch can keep up. That's not necessarily new, but lately it's been happening with the speed of a pickup truck rolling downhill without brakes. Segment 3. Global elections except. Not really. Across the world, democracy is doing that thing where it technically exists, but looks a little suspicious under bright lighting. Vietnam held a national election with nearly 80 million voters picking from candidates that were overwhelmingly members of the ruling Communist Party. 93% of them, to be precise. Now imagine a chili cook-off where every contestant works for the same restaurant. Sure, you can vote for your favorite bowl, but somehow every spoonful tastes suspiciously similar. That's basically how one-party elections function. The leadership stays stable, the political system stays predictable, and foreign investors feel comfortable parking factories there. Over in the Republic of Congo, President Denis Sassou Nguesso ran for yet another term after more than 4 decades in power. The election included internet blackouts and opposition boycotts, which is kind of like holding a karaoke contest, where you unplug the microphone for everyone except the defending champion. The reason this matters isn't just politics. Countries like Vietnam are attracting huge manufacturing investment as companies diversify away from China. Investors love stability. Sometimes they love it so much, they're perfectly happy if stability comes with fewer ballots and more rubber stamps. Segment 4, Markets, Layoffs, and the AI Office Takeover. Now the stock market decided to throw its own emotional roller coaster into the mix. Early in the week, investors panicked over war news. Then markets rallied after comments suggesting the conflict might end soon. So the Dow went from plunging hundreds of points to closing positive. That's the financial equivalent of someone screaming that the house is on fire. Then 10 minutes later, yelling, "Never mind, I think it's just the toaster." Markets respond instantly to optimism even when the underlying problems haven't changed. And underneath that rally, there's a quieter trend spreading through the workforce like termites in the foundation. Companies across finance, tech, and retail keep announcing layoffs tied directly to automation and AI efficiency. Thousands of jobs gone here, thousands there, all explained with corporate phrases like restructuring and optimization. Translation: the robot learned how to do your spreadsheets. Now that doesn't mean every job disappears overnight, but it does mean companies are discovering they can run leaner operations. And when executives see that kind of efficiency, they chase it like a raccoon chasing a shiny object. Segment 5, Heat waves, floods, and the climate calendar breaking. Meanwhile, the weather decided to join the chaos party. A massive heat dome over the American Southwest is pushing temperatures 30 degrees above normal for March. Phoenix flirting with triple digits, desert areas heading toward 110 degrees. March used to be spring. Now it's apparently summer's weird cousin who shows up early with a six-pack and refuses to leave. The problem isn't just uncomfortable afternoons. The real issue is snowpack melting too early in the mountains. That snowpack is basically the West's natural water reservoir. It melts slowly throughout the summer and feeds rivers like the Colorado. When it melts all at once in March, you get a flood now and a drought later. That's like emptying your entire savings account on day 1 of vacation and hoping the hotel accepts vibes as payment. And on the other side of the planet, parts of Africa are dealing with the opposite problem: massive flooding across agricultural regions. Too much water there, not enough here. Climate systems are shifting in ways that don't respect national borders or political debates. Segment 6, Sports, Culture, and the Strange Normality of Chaos. Even the sports world can't escape geopolitics right now. Formula One canceled races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia because missile strikes in the region made it impossible to guarantee safety. When a motorsport famous for cars going 200 miles an hour says things are too dangerous, that tells you something. At the same time, the New York City half marathon still happened, where elite runners shattered records in freezing conditions. 6 men finished under 60 minutes, which is a pace that makes most of us feel tired just thinking about it. There's something oddly symbolic about that contrast. On one side of the planet, global conflict is canceling billion-dollar sporting events. On the other side, athletes are quietly pushing the limits of human endurance like nothing else is happening. And maybe that's the strange normality of modern life. The world can be on fire in one place, while another place is setting a course record. Humanity keeps running forward even when the track itself looks a little crooked. In conclusion, the past week shows how tightly connected everything has become. War in the Middle East affects oil prices. Oil prices affect shipping. Shipping affects inflation. Inflation affects jobs. Jobs affect politics. And politics circles right back into war and trade again. The global system isn't a row of dominoes anymore. It's a spider web. Tug one thread and the whole structure vibrates. And right now, that web is shaking like a screen door in a tornado.